Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you're having a fantastic day. A little bit of a different video today. So, one, there was some news in terms of this year's kickoff weekend, which is going to be similar to last year's launch weekend, will be a little bit different. And then they also announced the dates for the first home series, which is going to be the Atlanta Faze home series. We're going to talk about all that, as well as I'm going to predict for you guys where I think the groups are probably going to end up based on the draw selection show that they talked about in their tweets. So first of all, I want to run through all of this news, all of these tweets, so that you guys are 1000% on what's happening. Then we'll get to our predictions. But first of all, CODLeague did tweet that announcing the CDL 2021 Kickoff Classic. Join us January 23rd to 24th. So as you're watching this, it's the 13th. So we've really got a week and a half, 10, 11 days until this kickoff weekend happens. In this, there's going to be fan-voted show matches. When it comes to show matches, that just means, for the most part, that they're not going to be for CDL points. If you go back to last year's launch weekend, if you fell behind, if you didn't get 10 points in those launch weekend matches, you were kind of behind the 8 ball a little bit. So they did away with that. These are just show matches to get everybody excited about the league. They're going to talk about 2021 season details, which is going to give us a little bit of a better idea in terms of when these home series are happening, when the majors are happening, and what that's going to look like. How long is the season going to be? When's champs? I don't know if they'll announce that or not, but at least give us a little bit more about the season. And then the group selection show. That's what we're going to make a prediction for, because I think it can go one of two ways. We'll talk about it in a moment, but this is the tweet where they announced the first opening weekend, the Atlanta Faze home series. It'll be February 11th through the 14th. So this is just a couple weeks after that kickoff weekend. So we're about to be in full swing of this thing. They did give the option. Remember, these said fan-voted show matches. So they gave the option for 3 of the top teams to put out these tweets. So they said, Greenwall, it's your time. Vote below on who you want us to face in the Kickoff Classic. So they gave LA Thieves, Toronto Ultra, Minnesota Rocker. Obviously, people is going to vote LA Thieves, right? That's a really easy one. I do think, however, these 2 teams in the bottom should play. I think Toronto and Minnesota has a little bit of a thing going on there. Who's the team in the North, stuff like that. So I would like to see both of those matchups there. When it came to Dallas, you could vote for London, Paris, or New York. Obviously, everybody's going to vote for New York because they want to see that matchup between Clay and Dallas. I voted Paris just because I knew nobody was going to vote for them, and I didn't really think it was matter because the percentage was going to be so high for New York. Anyways, and then when it came to Atlanta, this was an interesting one. So they have Florida Mutineers, LA Gorillas, and Seattle Surge. So I voted Florida. I'm really interested to see what Florida can do with Slacked in their lineup, but I don't blame people for also wanting to see, is Seattle the real deal? Looney, Prestini, Gunless, Octane, are they going to be able to bring it this year? Are they going to have troubles? What's going to happen there? So I would love either of these matchups. I just think Florida might be a little bit of a better team. This tweet is from COD Gamepedia. So in terms of draws, they say, to our understanding, the top 2 teams will take turns to select a team to be placed in the other's group. So that's one way. They have the top 2 teams from last year, and they have a snake-style draft to put teams wherever they think they belong. There's a different way that it could potentially happen, and we'll talk about that in a second, but it does say groups will be the same for each set of 3 qualifying home series events and then redrawn after each major. So these groups will be the groups, and then once the major takes place, my guess would be whoever's like in the championship or the finale will then have the ability to pick where they want teams to go. But this was included in that initial that news outlet that they put out. So it says, during the Kickoff Classic, the CDL will feature a unique group selection draw show, which see a special snake draft format that will allow teams to select a team that will be placed in its next ranked opponent's group. Now, that's not super specific. It goes on to say this means Dallas Empire will be able to select Atlanta Faze's first Group B opponent and will continue down the order of teams based on their 2020 CDL positions. So take that for what it's worth. It's not super clear, But let's go ahead. Let's get into a little bit of a predictions here. So obviously, if we're looking at this, we have Group A on the left, Group B on the right. These were the two teams that were in last year's finale. So essentially, to start this, Dallas is going to pick who they want to be in Atlanta's group for that first home series. And for me, there's a bunch of different places you can go, but I think that this is pretty clear. I think that they're probably going to move Optic over here into Group B. So that would be the first pick. At least that's kind of how I feel. Now, when we went through this, we did do predictions about 3 or 4 weeks ago. It's getting close. Once we get up to that first home series, we're going to go ahead. We're going to do another one. But when it comes to Atlanta, there's a couple teams. I feel like there's a group of teams that's right there in the middle. So this is a snake style draft, which means if this works how a lot of people are saying, then Dallas would get the first pick and then Atlanta would get the next two. And then Dallas would get 2, Atlanta would get 2, and so on and so forth. That's how snake drafts work. If you've ever played something like fantasy football, the first overall pick doesn't get another pick until it goes all the way to the end. That team gets 2 picks, and then it goes all the way back. So if you're Atlanta, you have to pick 2 teams to go over to Dallas's bracket. I think that this is probably going to be Florida. I feel like they're a team that probably has a little bit of a leg up. Where I get a little bit confused from here, or I'm not entirely sure of, is will the next team be 100 Thieves, New York Subliners, or Minnesota Rocker? I feel like these are the teams that are kind of maybe in that next tier along with Florida. So let's just say if I was doing this, if everybody's together, I would probably put 100 Thieves over here in Dallas's group, which means if Dallas gets the next pick, this is where things get easier for them, because in my mind, you could then put New York and Minnesota over in Atlanta's group, and now you just have the rest of these guys here, which not that they're bad teams, I just don't know if they're on the same level as those ones that are up there. So if you look at these groups, while there are challenging matchups in Group A, Group B is just stacked in terms of how I'm feeling right now. If you're at this point, you're Atlanta, you just had 2 placed in your group, so now you can pick 2 to go over to Group A. I think Seattle would probably be in there, and the next pick is going to be pretty close. I mean, London or Toronto. I would probably pick Toronto to be a little bit better based off of how they finished last year. So Toronto would go there, and then Dallas would then pick again for Atlanta, which would probably be something like London, and then wherever you want to go from here, probably LAG, and then that would put Paris over in Group A. So the way that I look at this, if this is the way that it happens, this is kind of how I see it. So Dallas would end up with Florida, LA Thieves, Seattle, Toronto, and Paris. I will go through kind of the second option here in just a moment. Atlanta will end up with Optic, New York, Minnesota, LAG, and London. And to me, it really seems like this Group B is much tougher when it comes to these matchups, the potential matchups that are over here, other than Group A. It just seems much tougher than Group A. Now, the other way that this could work, and it's a little bit tricky from here, but the other way that it could work is it kind of said it would go down the line in the order of how they finished last season. This, again, it's a little bit tricky, but let's just say Dallas puts Optic over in this group, then the second place team would be Atlanta. So let's say Atlanta goes, and again, they pick Florida to go over in Group A. Now, again, if you're doing a snake draft, the third place team would be Optic. So in this scenario, Optic could put, I don't know, let's just say LA Thieves over in Group A. And this is where the issue arises, okay? If we're looking at this, the next highest placed team would be London. So in this scenario, if you're just going in terms of how teams placed last year, where is London? Say London really doesn't want to play New York. Well, what if New York goes over here, and then eventually as it goes down the line, London ends up being placed over there also, right? London doesn't want to pick a bracket to put a team in if they don't know where they're going to be yet. Now, it could also be snake style draft based on the teams that are up here on the board. So in that instance, 100 Thieves actually finished above Florida. So in my mind, since 100 Thieves is already on the board, then they would pick next. Say they want to put Minnesota over here. And then from here, it just continues. After that, the teams that are on the board, Florida would be next. So Florida could come through and say, all right, let's put New York over there. Then from these teams that are on the board, New York placed the next highest from these teams. So let's go ahead, let's put Seattle over there. But what you're seeing, just based off of kind of how I'm playing this out, it's actually kind of turning out to be the same way. So I don't know if the top two teams will decide it all, or if each team will get a say in this. It's an interesting setup. I'm excited for that kickoff weekend to see exactly how they're going to do it. But in my mind, if it works out with Dallas and Atlanta kind of going back and forth in a snake style draft, I think that Atlanta group is going to be stacked. And to me, this seems like a much easier route to the first major in terms of seeding for Dallas than it would be for any of those teams that are over in Group B. So who knows how it's actually going to work out. This is one of those videos. Put comments down below because I'm not really sure. You guys might have better ideas than I do. I'm really interested to see what everybody's take is on this. So go ahead, leave a thumbs up, leave a comment down below. If you're new around here, I put out predictions before every event. I really do my best to keep you up to date on how teams are performing going into each final. So make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button, leave a like as it helps out the channel. And thank you guys so much. We will see you in tomorrow's upload.